Hello everyone, Josh from C2000 here, and today I've got for you the Shadow War review. This one's going to be quite long, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking it issue by issue. So I'm going to segment this video up at the start. It's going to be, essentially we're going to have a bunch of little comic book carnages for each issue, kind of glued together. It covers quite a lot of books. I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8... about 9 books, give or take, Shadow War takes up. 2 of which being one-shots that are exclusive to Shadow War, and then the rest being a mixture of Batman, Robin, and Deathstroke Inc issues. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about how it's formatted towards the end, because I have a bit of an issue with the way they've chosen to format this one, but first, let's get into the actual story of it. So, the first one we're going to be covering is Shadow War Alpha. Let's start off with this. So, we open with Raz talking into the mirror and he's contemplating something. He overhears Talia and Damien sparring, and they're kind of mucking around and, you know, hanging about. And Raz comes up with the idea of, okay, right, I've been trying to do this through violence for years. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hand myself in, I'm going to give a speech, and then we'll see how it goes from there. So it opens up with Raz being driven in. He stands up on this plinth and he's giving this speech, and Batman and Damien are both kind of stood in the wings waiting to see what happens, because Batman rightfully points out, you know, Raz has made a lot of enemies over the years. It would be the perfect opportunity for one of them to strike at him, and sure enough, somebody does. Deathstroke strikes at him, takes a sniper, puts a shot clean through Raz's head. Raz is dead, Raz is on the ground. He then throws a grenade to Raz's body, giving Batman the ultimatum: chase me down or make sure Raz has a body to put in the pit. And Batman fails to get to the body, so Raz is blown up. Raz is gone. Raz is dead now. Interestingly enough, this book also makes a reference to something that happened in Checkmate and Event Leviathan. Apparently that had something to do with the Al Ghul's. I didn't read that because that was a Bendis book, and I just can't get on with the way Bendis writes. A bit too slow for my taste. Takes a little bit too long to get to the point. So essentially, what happens is Batman and Damien kind of have a falling out because Damien has just watched Raz die, and it brings back the memories of what happened to Alfred, and Batman isn't exactly very... Batman tries to comfort him, but it doesn't work out, and Batman actually ends up saying something incredibly callous. He basically turns around to him and says, if I was the one there with Alfred, I could have saved him, which really hurts Damien, and Damien just puts his mask on and is like, okay, right, I'm gonna go bring Deathstroke in, dead or alive, without your help. Right, so they go their separate ways. And then we catch up to a wounded Talia who's managed to escape, and she's bringing together the League of Assassins and the League of Shadows. So she's pulling in all of her favors, essentially, to go and hunt down the person responsible. The final person we catch up with is Deathstroke and Respawn, and, like, the people in Deathstroke Inc go up to Deathstroke and are like, hey, what the hell? You know, what are you doing pulling big plays like this without telling us? And Deathstroke's like, I've been here with Respawn all day. What do you mean big plays? And they show Deathstroke the footage, and Deathstroke looks at the footage and he's like, that's an old version of my armor. I've not wore that armor in years. I've been here all day with Respawn. And then, as he's about to try and explain it, the League show up, and we're gonna essentially be thrust into a throwdown at the first proper part of it. So, that aside, the next thing we need to cover is the first part of Shadow War proper, which is in Batman 122. Okay, so far we've got a very interesting opening. I'm liking to see what happens here, and you know what? I like the League of Assassins. They're probably one of my favourite Batman villains, or one of my favourite Batman groups. So I'm interested to see what they do now that Raz is dead. Well, you know, essentially their first priority is going to be getting rid of Deathstroke, but let's see how that operates and let's see how that works. But overall, Shadow War Alpha is actually a very strong opening to this event, and I'm really interested to see what happens with it. Now we're going to be doing 122. Okay, so this one opens with Batman and a new character stood over the crime scene, and they're investigating. You know, he's doing his usual. He finds that there's been a tunnel drill field that leads all the way out to the outer city limits, and this is how they theorize Deathstroke has, well, the imposter Deathstroke allegedly has gotten in without being noticed, because Batman had the entire area under surveillance, and he's even used some replay footage to like look at the scene again. We also see that Deathstroke nailed not only Raz, but also took a few shots at Talia and managed to land a couple of them. From there, we then pick up with Raz and him attempting to escape the Deathstroke Inc building. So him and Respawn escape there and go to ground. Then we pick up with Rose, and she's sat in a bar drinking as the news breaks on the television. And we actually get quite a bit of a funny response where she's just kind of like drunkenly mumbling about like, of course, Dad, thanks. That's totally not going to blow back on your family. And then we have this other amusing bit where there's some guys that are about to like try and have a go. Because, you know, Rose is literally sat there in half her gear with a sword. She's not exactly in civilian attire. And even then in civilian attire, she's very much recognizable. Like, you know, can't exactly hide that. So, yeah, these guys, they kind of come over and it's like, hey, didn't get your ID. We're going to need to have a look at that. And then Damien just, like, knocks them all out and is like, hey, me and you need to talk. And she's like, okay, yes, save it. Down's a drink. And he's like, come on, let's go kill Deathstroke. Which, okay. I very much get the robot, you know the robot chicken clip where it's like, it's not my problem. Pushes his drink over. Now, it's my problem. Like, very much get that kind of vibe off that. And then we end the issue with Batman tracking down Talia, because his original conclusion is Talia hired Deathstroke to kill Raz and then shoot her to make it look like she wasn't the mastermind behind it all. And, you know, so Batman, he gets in there, like, you know, and all of the guards kind of jump in on him, and it's like, hey, you are not welcome here. And they get into a fight, and Batman beats them all without killing any of them. And Talia's like, okay, impressive. You always make a show of it. You know, you could just sneak in here, but, you know, you always want to make a show of it, aren't you? Good talent. Waste of your talent, though. Like, very much implying that, yes, I know you could kill those guys. You have the training, but you choose not to. And then we also get the bit where Batman's like, okay, yeah, I know your game. You're the one who's making the show really here, you know. You're the one responsible for what happened to Raz because you didn't want to get handed in. And then Talia's like, you dare come here when I'm grieving for my father and throw accusations at me. Talia's injured. She goes to try and fight Batman, but she's injured, so she kind of doubles over, like not being able to lift up her own sword. And Batman kind of catches her as she falls, and they end up sharing a kiss at the end of that issue. So, you know, I'm personally not a fan of Bruce and Talia, to be honest. It's a bit, yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Hey-ho, kind of what I expected. So, I'm looking at issue number 8 now, and from the cover, it looks as if we're probably going to be spending part of this with Deathstroke and Respawn. Although, to be honest, these crossovers, they do tend to be jumping around between, I think essentially, it's going to be 3 sets of characters. We're going to have Rose and Robin, Deathstroke and Respawn, and Batman. But I think those are going to be the 3 parties we're jumping between. I could be wrong. We shall wait and see. So, next up is Deathstroke Inc number 8, and Raptor shows up because he's been captured by one of the Demon Shadows, and he's brought before Talia. Now, Raptor essentially is working for Slade, and he's basically, it's actually quite funny actually, because he blurts out, this Batman's talking to Talia and he's brought before them, and the one that's captured Raptor blurts out about Talia going on a killing spree, and Batman's like, what? And Talia's like, oh, I sent my guys to go and find and kill Deathstroke and his associates. And Batman's like, you what? Then the Raptor's like, oh, by the way, I heard your son did really good at that death tournament, Batman, nice job. And Batman's like, what? So Batman's basically finding out a bunch of stuff he didn't know prior to this. And so I essentially imagine it's basically a way for them to catch Batman up on the events of some of the other stuff. And while this is going on, so Batman basically, like, you know, he fights his way out of there because it turns pretty ugly. And, you know, he pleads to Talia, hey, look, let me find Deathstroke. Let me bring Deathstroke to you. Nobody else has to die. Talia's like, hey, look, since when have you ever known me to do something you want? And then they turn on him. he fights his way out. And Talia says to her associates, I really like her design, by the way. I wonder if she's a recurring character or if she's somebody from another one of Joshua Williamson's books, because she's got a really neat design and I actually quite like her so far. So essentially, she goes to follow Raptor because Talia deduces that Raptor's going to get in contact with Deathstroke and lead them to Deathstroke. So while this is all going on, Deathstroke and Respawn are at a hideout in San Francisco that Deathstroke set up when he was fighting the Titans. And, you know, he's actually got each of the original Titans as target practice, and he's got like old supplies and stuff and gear, and like him and Respawn are just basically going to ground. Slade's like, he does this really fancy thing where he throws explosive shurikens at all the targets and blows them all up, and like because the kid does a shot to Robin's chest and gets it right in the art, and he says, "Ha, look at that, I know what I'm doing." And then Deathstroke's like, "Oh, that's cute," then does that, blows all the Titans' heads off, and he's like, "I'm gonna teach you all the tricks, kid." And then there's actually this really funny moment where Respawn picks up a knife and he says, "Hey, maybe I need to have one eye like you." And then Slade just puts his hand instantly on his arm, takes the knife, and he's like, no, you don't." Which, as a big fan of Ravager, that bit made me laugh, because at least Slade has learned something from his time looking after Rose, which is you don't allow kids to play with knives. And anyway, at the end of the issue, Deathstroke and Rose find their way to the safe house, and they basically declare, okay, look, payback's a bitch, and they're gonna go up against Deathstroke and Respawn, which is pretty neat, because I assume Rose just is basically like, hey, I know the safe house they're probably going to use. Follow me. You know, we can get them there. Put an end to this. So next is Robin number 13. We get a pretty sick fight between Ravager, Deathstroke, Respawn, and Robin, which ends with basically a big kind of discussion. Essentially, Respawn unmasks in front of Damian and kind of like explains the whole situation, what Respawn is, and Damian then uses that to ascertain whether Respawn is lying. He's not so much focusing on what Deathstroke's saying, he's more focusing on Respawn, because he knows what he does when he lies. So he's like, because he's looking at essentially a similar version of himself, and he's finding those ticks. And so essentially, him and Batman now decide to go and work together to try and solve the case. And Batman asks him, "What do I have to do to prove that we can do this?" And Damian says, "Let me drive." And he does it. Batman lets a Robin drive. You've got Batman kind of sat in the back of the vehicle because the seat is blatantly designed for a Robin, and he's like, looks really uncomfortable and hunched over. And honestly, that is the funniest Batman image I've seen in a long time. I love the fact that it's like it's dealing with this really sinister plot and these double crosses and people double crossing each other, but it's also got a few moments to have a bit of levity and a bit of a joke, which I quite like that about how Joshua Williamson writes his stuff. He has these serious moments with like really good revelations and stuff, but he also allows himself to have a bit of humor and to kind of step back a little bit. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that. I'm not sure what's happened with Ravager. She disappeared with Respawn and Deathstroke at the end of this issue, so she's either gone off with them or gone off on her own, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Okay, so Batman 123, and Deathstroke, Rose, and Respawn head back to the scene of the crime because Deathstroke wants to look over the place himself and try and get an idea of who was the one who pulled the trigger. Robin and Batman were also looking into, they were following up a lead on the costume. Essentially, there was a group of Deathstroke impersonators in a recent Justice League arc, and they all got their suit from the same place. They also said that they come across another guy there at the same time that was getting a suit, so they were following up a lead on him, and Batman and Robin ended up coming to blows with him briefly. He's got like a trench coat, a hood, and it's like, you know, you can see the Deathstroke armor underneath, so you know that I think at some point they're going to be leading up to it, oh, who is it under the mask kind of dealio. The three Wilsons end up getting into a scuffle with a group of the League. There's also a member of Batman Inc there, because at this point Batman Inc have been protecting Deathstroke's associates, and in the fight Respawn gets shot, and the last we see of Deathstroke is holding Respawn, weeping, like like, you know, crying out, not again, not again, not again. Hood's also shot, he's on the ground, and Rose and Deathstroke are fine. So that's where we're at in terms of that. We also get a bit of a flashback to one of Deathstroke's early contracts in Gotham. We see that Joker has gassed Deathstroke in the past, and it led to a confrontation between him, Batman, and Joker, and the contract was originally to kill Robin. Now, I think the Robin in this flashback was probably Dick, looking at the design. So we're looking at a flashback that's quite far back. That's essentially all she wrote for this one. Now we've got Shadow War Zone, which is a one-shot. I think it's got a few extra tales that are meant to be tying a few things together. Okay, so now let's cover Warzone. I'm going to be very brief with this. It's just a few short stories. We've got one with Black Canary. She's having a fight with Angel Break, which is that other character that I mentioned earlier that brought in Raptor, which was pretty neat. So they appear to have some history, so I think she might be a character from the Green Arrow books. I don't know. Not too sure. Other than that, we also get a story with Harley Quinn, Ghostmaker, and I think we also get a brief one with Talia and Raz and some of the, like, to do with the League of Assassins. I don't want to go too much into detail with that one because this video is going to be long enough as is, and we still have like 3 full issues to get through, which is Deathstroke Inc number 9, Robin number 14, and the actual conclusion, which is Shadow War Omega. So yeah, we've got speaking of which, Deathstroke Inc number 9 next, and this one has easily my favorite variant cover. Honestly, this is like, damn, this is one of the best pieces of artwork I've ever seen of this design of Ravager. Like, holy shit. Like, honestly, some of this and the Robin cover, like, honestly, I've not been, the Rebirth design's okay. It's a good modern update of her classic design, but like, it's not like massively wowed me. The cover for Deathstroke Inc number 9 and one of the covers for one of the Robin issues really have actually sold me on this suit. It's a funny situation. It's similar to Jason's Rebirth outfit, the biker jacket with the hood and the Mortal Kombat style mask. I wasn't a massive fan of that when I saw the concept designs, but when I saw some of the awesome variants, I actually really liked that design. To be honest, I think this design and Jason's current design are actually some of my favourites of the Rebirth redesigns, actually. Part of the reason for the liking the Rose one so much is because it's an update of her classic design. The New 52 one was literally just, there was nothing, apart from the logo, there was nothing that matched with her original design. Her original suit was pretty much thrown out, but this one still has the colours and the mask from the original suit. To be honest, the only thing I'd personally want to change is I'd give her back the eye patch, but you know, random little brief discussion about the design. I will put up on screen who the artist is that did the variant cover for this book, because it is actually like really damn good. And also, looking at this, I think we have the artist back who did some of the, I think it was some of the New 52, it was either New 52 Deathstroke or Red Hood. I recognise the art for the interior of this book, but yeah, I'm really liking the art here. So enough about the art, let's actually get into the story. So this issue opens with Deathstroke and Rose taking Respawn into one of the chop shop kind of doctors, and you have the realisation straight away that Respawn's dead. Like, he was dead before he was even brought there. There was nothing they could do. So Slade at this point is ticked. Slade at this point wants blood. He turns around to Rose and he says, hey look, I know you had reservations when I asked you before, but I'm asking you now. Join me. These people have killed your brother. They need to pay for this. She does, because, you know, next time we see them, she's with them. I guess she's working with Slade for this duration now. What we have here is essentially, we catch up with Batman and Damian. They are fighting this Deathstroke pretender, and he's basically saying that, hey look, you know, the war between Talia and Deathstroke has been brewing for a while. Damian denotes that the guy's trying to hide an accent, and Batman says that I could swear I know you from your mannerisms. So we know essentially the person behind this is somebody that has been associated with Batman and Deathstroke in the past. So yeah, he has a brief scuffle with them and he gets away. He uses one of these tunnels that he's been digging. Then from there we pick up with Ghostmaker and Clown Hunter. They're looking after the Secret Society members, and Deathstroke and Ravager burst their way in, and they are there to collect. You know, they want to get their guys together. So they've got a plan. And this ends with Deathstroke having a duel with Ghostmaker, which I was actually really interested in. I quite like this. I kind of like the rapport these two had. Ghostmaker's like, hey, never actually come across you, but I've heard a lot about you, heard a lot of stories. Kind of thought you were overrated. And Deathstroke's like, yeah, I've heard a lot about you too. Guess we need to find something out, don't we? And then they go at each other. Slade, like, gets kicked out the window, but he comes back and he puts a gun to Clown Hunter's head, and it is saying like, hey, I've lost so many kids doing this. We ought to get the children to stop playing dress up, really. Ghostmaker's just like, I'm not gonna cause you to kill Clown Hunter out of some stupid sense of trying to prove that I'm better than you. So, you know, Slade then proceeds to start blowing up the building to cover their escape, and they escape in a Batjet. They head straight for the League. They're essentially just gonna do an all or nothing, just going straight at the League, which I think is awesome. You know, we've got the guys going on essentially on a Slade describes it as a suicide mission. Deathstroke, Rose, and the Secret Society are going at the League of Assassins, basically. They're going to war now. We're going to see these two factions throw down by the looks of it. So I'm interested to see what happens in Robin number 14, which is when I believe we're actually going to get the fight. It is subtitled Deathstroke Terminated, so we wonder what happens there. And also, the cover for the next issue of Shadow War has Deathstroke's helmet with a League of Assassin blade through it, and like a bunch of spent ammunition and stuff, and like batarangs. So I'm actually, you know, this is the first one of these crossovers I've actually really liked. But yeah, as I said earlier, I've got a bit of a complaint about the way they've done it, and it's because like the majority of it is held within the three titles, right? It's held within Batman, Deathstroke Inc and Robin, you know? So essentially, you know, you pick those up and, you know, you get the full story, right? But you've also got a few random bits, like you've got Shadow War Alpha, which is like the start of it. But the thing is, if you didn't pick that up and you just read from the Batman issue, you'd be missing the whole thing that kicks it off. And the ending is in a separate issue as well. So it's like, I know for people that have pull lists, this isn't an issue, because my comic shop, they're kind enough to put that kind of stuff in there for you. But, you know, like most people that don't have pull lists, like I've not seen any kind of checklist in these issues. I mean, there's, you know, like how in some of the issues there's a checklist for Infinite Dark Crisis, the new Crisis event that's coming up. There's a checklist running from May, June, July, August, September, and there's a lot of books in that. I'm not I'm not sure how I feel about that, honestly, but that's a big Crisis event that we got coming up, and it's just like, oh boy. I know I ought to read it really, so I know what's going on in the larger DC universe, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm not one of these that's like for the big event books. I don't know, I might see if they collect it in a trade and read it as one, I don't know, but yeah. So anyway, we've 2 more issues left to go, so next one's going to be Robin number 14. God damn, Robin number 14. Woohoo! Okay, well, let's get into this. So Deathstroke and his people are fighting their way through the League of Assassins and the shadows, and Slade comes up against Talia and they are fighting. Then we come back to Batman and Damian. They and Ghostmaker and all the Batman Inc guys arrive in the middle of the chaos. There's all this fighting going on. And Damian bumps into Ravager as she's in the middle of cutting down some League people. Like, there's blood on the sword. It's very determined that these people are dead. Robin kind of pulls her up and is like, hey, look, I can't believe you decided with your father after everything. Like, you know, like, come on, what are you doing here? And Rose says, oh, you don't know, do you? And then she explains to him what happens to Respawn. And she's like, well, okay, look, because of that, the kid just wanted a family, you know? He didn't want any of this, so I'm here. I don't want to be here, but I'm here. And then we get into the fight proper with Deathstroke and Talia, and hot damn, Talia kills him. Just straight through the armor, straight through the chest. As far as we know, like, Rose kneels down and checks the pulse, and she's like, yeah, Slade's dead. And then we also get the introduction of who the mastermind is behind all of this, and you'll never guess what, it's Brion. It's Geoforce. Yeah, the leader of Markovia, which makes sense because they brought up that thing with Markovia at the start of Shadow War, you know, how his people were wronged by the Al Ghul's, you know, and he was essentially hoping that they'd take each other out because he wanted repercussions for his country. He wanted vengeance. Now we've got the, like, you know, we've got Rose, Damien, and the Batman Inc guys looking to take down Geoforce by the look of it. And I don't know if Deathstroke's gonna get back up in the next book or not, so it makes me wonder what's happening to Deathstroke Inc. I think it's entirely possible that a book could be over now, based upon this, which, hey-ho, it was fun while it lasted. To be honest, if we're coming up to another Crisis event, it would not shock me if we're coming up to another reboot. So, like, ultimately, I think at this point DC is just going, okay, anybody's fair game. Like, because if they know they've got a Crisis event coming in the next few months, they're probably going to be a lot more chill about who gets killed off and stuff. So, to be honest, I could quite easily see Slade staying dead after this, which will be interesting. I wonder if we might get a short, I don't know, I wonder if we might get a short Ravager series placing Deathstroke Inc. between now and the reboot, if we do get a reboot, of course. I must admit, I quite like, yeah, this has actually been really good. I've actually, Joshua Williamson is probably one of my favourite writers at DC at the moment, and I'm not normally a fan of these big crossover events, but this crossover's not disappointed. I've been liking this kicks ass. I'm a bit surprised about the Deathstroke versus Talia fight. I was not expecting Deathstroke to wind up dead going into this. So yeah, but to be fair though, Deathstroke's faked out his death several times. It wouldn't surprise me if this is a fake out, but we'll see going into the final issue. So the next thing we have to cover is Shadow War Omega, which promises to be the climactic conclusion. So we'll see how this goes. Cover art is sweet as well. I must admit, I like this. I'm probably going to use this one for the thumbnail or the Ravager one for the thumbnail. Hell, maybe I'll use both. This is that's actually the knife Talia used to kill Slade with as well, sticking through the helmet. I really like that. That's really good. Kudos to the guy who designed this cover. Jeez Louise, man. Anyway, guys, so on to the final book then. Okay, called it. I knew it was a fake out. Deathstroke has been dumped. Deathstroke gets dumped in a Lazarus pit at the end of this book. So yeah, Deathstroke is definitely not dead. And it also looks like it's leading directly into the Crisis event. So yeah, looks like I'm going to be reading that. Anyway, so let's discuss this book. So essentially, Breon is essentially doing he saw Markovia get destroyed. His home was destroyed by Talia when she tried to defeat Leviathan and get the League of Assassins back and all that, and it crushed him, it destroyed him. Like, you know, he lost it, and he was pulling out all the stops to try and kill Talia. So to be honest, part of me was siding with Breon on this. I think given what Talia did, I think Breon would be right in taking Talia out. So yeah, I kind of knew Deathstroke was a fake out. But Talia's arrested now. She, at the end of the book, she hands herself into she honors the deal Val was going to make. So there's now this new person running the League of Shadows, which is Angel Break, which is this character that has shown up. And also, it turns out Angel Break knows Ghostmaker as well. They've had history. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. So essentially, at the end of this book, Batman and Robin are back together. They're a duo. That's going to continue in the next Robin book by the look of it. Batman is, like, you know, he's doing his normal stuff. Talia's in jail. Angel Break is, she's running the league. Rose is off looking for her father. She's trying to confirm the fact that Slade is dead because the society got away with the body, hence the Lazarus pit. And it looks like Deathstroke is now out for, like, he's out for blood. He wants revenge. He's not a happy bunny. So it looks like that's what's going to be leading into Dark Crisis, because it says this continues in Dark Crisis #1. So we will be I'll be interested to see what goes on with Dark Crisis then. I guess I ought to get a list together of what books I need for Dark Crisis, because if it's carrying on from this, I suppose I need to read it. And it's also, I'm not sure what's going to happen with it, but yeah, I kind of knew the whole thing with Deathstroke wasn't going to stick in the ending. I'm a little bit disappointed that it didn't stick, because I was kind of hoping that perhaps they'd be brave enough. This thing is, DC reboots very often now. They reboot fairly often, they reboot the titles fairly often, so I was kind of hoping maybe they were having a moment where it's like, okay, let's try something big. Let's try something that's going to make some waves, and let's use it to do something else. Let's do something new. Because what I was kind of thinking of was the when Batman died in one of the Crisis events, Dick became Batman and kind of filled in that role. I was wondering, like, as I said, I wonder if we're going to get a Ravager book for a bit. Like, you know, have Deathstroke be out of it. Because, like, I'm going to be honest, Rebirth's been running for a while, and it's got to the point where in a few places, Rebirth is a bit of a mess. Because you had, well, it was basically a case of too many cooks in the kitchen. Jeff Johns wanted to do his stuff with a button and bring in the Watchmen stuff. Tom King did his thing with Heroes in Crisis, which got rid of a number of the legacy characters. It got rid of Roy, got rid of Kid Devil / Kid Flash, behaving more like Reverse Flash though. Flipping, I'm not happy with what they did with Wally. But yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't know. It was a good story overall, and the old, the final fight between, like, I kind of wish they all worked together to take Breon down, but it ends up being Damian that does it, which I'm not really surprised. DC likes to push Damian at the moment, and well, to be fair, Joshua Williamson writes a decent Damian. I've said this before. I literally said this in the previous video that I really like the way he writes Damian, and I like the rapport he had with Ravager in this story arc as well. I like the fact that, you know, he's it's a bit hypocritical though, because Breon tries to kill Breon kills people and he puts him down in like seconds, like to be arrested. But Ravager cuts someone down in front of him and he's just like, oh yeah, okay, all right, yeah, whatever. I don't know. It's just I don't know. There's a bit where like it's very good read. I like this story arc. Decent story arc. I'm looking forward to see. Looks like I'm going to have to read Dark Crisis then, and we're going to get an idea of what's going on with Dark Crisis. I'm just going to, hang on. I know there's a list for Dark Crisis in one of these books. Where is it? I know I've got a list in here with like, all the issues I need. So yeah, here we are. I'm going to get this. Oh, this is also written by Joshua Williamson. Okay, guess I'm reading this then. Where's the, it's not this one. Yeah, I've got an issue in here that has like the list of all the issues for Dark Crisis. So I'm probably gonna pick that up as it continues this story. I was particularly a big fan of it, really enjoyed it. I hope you guys also enjoy it. This was actually a damn good time. And I'm now mostly caught up with a number of the runs that I read for DC. The only DC run I need to catch up on now is Nightwing, I think. And then the rest is just all Marvel stuff that I need to catch up on. Yeah, okay, here we are. So in May we have Justice League Road to Dark Crisis. Then in June we have Dark Crisis 1, Dark Crisis Young Justice 1, The Flash 783, Dark Crisis 2 in July, Dark Crisis World Without a Justice League Superman 1, Dark Crisis Young Justice 2, The Flash 784, Dark Crisis 3, Dark Crisis World Without a Justice League Green Lantern 1, Dark Crisis Young Justice 3, The Flash, Dark Crisis 4, September. Okay, so it looks like this is running all the way to December. Damn, okay. To be fair though, it is neatly spread out, so hopefully it shouldn't be too much of an impact on my pull list if I ask them to put this on my pull list for me. So yeah, but yeah, so I'm definitely going to be reading that by the looks of things. Really looking forward to where they go with this. With Dark Crisis, I get the feeling Deathstroke is probably going to be one of the villains in Dark Crisis, which is nice because I like Deathstroke being a serious villain. To be honest, I was hoping he was going to seriously do some damage to Talia, because I've been wanting Deathstroke to be taken seriously for a good while, because a big problem that I had with the new 52 Deathstroke run was that Deathstroke was being beat up in it all the time in his own book, you know, so I was kind of hoping, you know, that perhaps this story would make Deathstroke a bit of a serious player again, because he's not, I'm going to be honest, he's not, like, in the grand scheme of DC, he's not as threatening as he once was, which, you know, I was hoping perhaps they would fix that. Anyway, guys, this video has gone on for long enough. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I guess I'll see you again when Dark Crisis comes out. Right, okay, so I just want to say, if you watched this far into the video, I thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. I know this one's been quite a long one, but we've covered quite a lot of books here. And let me know if you've enjoyed this kind of thing, because I will probably do more of them in the future if you guys enjoy it.